Here we're looking at bar graphs. Bar graphs do a good job of visually displaying information that is either in summary or a snapshot in time. If you're going to be showing some information where the data changes over time, you're going to want to go with a line graph because it can then show the data and trends as things change over time. But here, this is an example from our textbook from Applied Behavior Analysis, 2nd edition by Cooper, Heron on Heward, page 135. And here you could see they've summarized the information from their experiment, their intervention. Actually, it was more of an experiment where they were comparing 3 different conditions: satiation, control, and deprivation, on the percent of trials with an approach response during a preference assessment to determine the establishing operations of the different conditions there. And so you can clearly see then that this deprivation condition, which is indicated by the dark column, produced more approaches more often, which is what we would expect to see. Now, how are we going to create a bar graph for this assignment? This assignment asks for you to create a simple bar graph. It doesn't have to be complicated, but to include some particular components and to label those components. So this graph itself, though, it actually is incorrect in that it is colored, and we need all graphs to be in grayscale to prevent any possible bias. So let's look at how to go ahead and create one of these. We're going to create it in Excel. And the first thing you do is you input your data. I've already input some data here on preferred snack items, comparing boys versus girls in these different snack items: Cheetos, crackers, goldfish, raisins, and apples. To take this data and turn it into a bar graph, I need to highlight all of the data, go to Insert, and now I'm not going to say Insert Bar Graph. As you see from this icon here, Excel considers bar graphs to be horizontal. In ABA, our bar graphs are vertical, and so we're going to use what Excel considers a column graph. We click on that. We don't want anything fancy. We don't want pyramids or cones or cylinders. We want a plain old 2-dimensional column. Here we have our graph. There's some things we need to change, though, to make sure that it's APA formatted. First, we need to make sure it's grayscale. Like I mentioned before, this is going to reduce bias. The other thing we need to do is change it to Times New Roman. We go Home, right here, we change it to Times New Roman, 12-point font, as per APA formatting, okay? Next, we don't have a title, so we need to go to Layout, Chart Title. We want our title to be above the chart. And so here we're going to type in our title. This instance is Preferred Snack Items. Okay? And we need to input a axis titles. Our primary horizontal axis happens to be our x-axis there, and that in this case it is snack item. Okay, and we need to have an axis title for our vertical axis, our y-axis, and we're going to choose a rotated axis, and this is going to be number of students. Okay, so now we have all of the items that we need. We have our title, we have our legend, we have snack items, we have our number of students, we've got our data. Okay, so now we need to copy this because we need to put it into a Word document. When we go to put it in a Word document, it's always much easier if you start with a paper that's already formatted. Here's a paper that I did earlier. I already have my running head formatted correctly with Times New Roman 12-point font. I've got the title page formatted correctly. As you scroll down, you can see that my additional pages are different from my first page. Now here what I need to do is just highlight everything below that because I don't need it anymore. Back it up, And now I don't have to worry about doing my running head correctly. I just can change the title from written assignment 1-2 to written assignment 2-1, and it's a lot faster than having to recreate those things. Down here into the body of my paper, type bar graph and Control V. There I pasted it right into the Word document. I'm going to add a little bit of space because one of the things I need to do now is label all of those different components. Okay? Here, the assignment asks us to label the dependent variable, the independent variable, x-axis, y-axis, data, title, legend, and the fact that it's a bar graph. I already titled the bar graph by putting that on the top of the page. Now I have to add those other things. I'm going to add those by inserting, up here, insert a text box. And I'm going to draw that text box. First text box, I'm going to draw it right out here. I'm going to make sure that it's going to type that in Times New Roman, 12-point font, and I'm going to say title, okay? Because I want to label that title. Make it a little smaller, it doesn't need to be that big. And now I'm going to insert a shape. The shape I'm going to insert is an arrow. And I'm just going to start right here, hold down the button, and pull it down to the title. Right there I've labeled my title. Now, in order to make the text box easier from here on out, I'm going to copy this. And then I'm just going to paste. Okay, you can't paste inside. You have to click outside every time before you say paste again. And I'm going to paste several little text boxes here, and then I can move them around and change them like I'd like to cover all of my bases. Okay? This one, I'm going to move down here, and I'm going to label it x-axis. Those words didn't show up because my box isn't big enough, but that's okay. I can stretch it. There we go. Once again, inserting that shape of an arrow, taking it from that box, and going straight to the axis. That is the x-axis. Okay? I'm going to move all these around first, so I know I've got them where I need them. One for the y-axis, one for the legend, one for the data, one for the independent variable, one for the dependent variable. Let's see, do I need more than that? Let's go back and look at the assignment. I've got one for dependent, independent, X, Y, data, title, legend. Looks like I'm good. Go back over here. Don't need this one. Over here, this one's for data. This one's for legend. That one needs to stretch out a little bit. This one I know is going to need to stretch out because it's going to be the independent variable. Just a word on independent and dependent variables. Typically in ABA, the independent variable is the intervention. The dependent variable is the target behavior that you're looking to change with the intervention. So for instance, if you're looking to reduce head banging with the use of functional communication training, then the independent variable is functional communication training, and the dependent variable would be head banging. which is a little bit different than when you're looking at graphs sometimes. In this case, this isn't really an intervention. It is a snapshot in time showing preferred snack items. So almost always on a graph, the x-axis is the independent variable. Most often in a line graph, it's going to be something like time. And the dependent variable, the one that's changing, is the one that you show on the y-axis. So in this case, the independent variable isn't really a intervention, it's a stimulus. And the dependent variable is the number of students that like that stimulus, it's or prefer it. So here we go. This is the independent variable. A little slow typing with one hand. And stretch this one out so I can say it's the dependent variable. And this one needs to be stretched just a little bit so we can show that that's the y-axis. Okay, and now when I do all of my arrows at once, it's going to be a little faster. Insert shape arrow. The dependent variable is the number of students. And now I can just go up here and click arrow again instead of having to go to insert shapes. So it kind of benefits you to do all the arrows at once. And here's our y-axis. All right, choose another arrow. Our independent variable is our snack item. Another arrow to show that this right here is our legend. And I need a couple of arrows to indicate that this is data, and so is this data. Just a couple of arrows indicate that, you know, all of this stuff out here happens to be our data. Okay? And there you have it. That is a complete bar graph as per written assignment 1.2.